How are you going to spend this weekend? Downtown, uptown, at the beach, traveling, or at home? We'll share some great ideas on what you could be doing on the all-new Wilmington Weekend. See here on CBS 10 WILM.
The name's England. Jon England.
I was just given this gift at about the same time as I left school, when they discovered I was useless at just about everything else, incidentally. And I just found literally overnight that I was able to play, and there'd always been music in the house, and I'd always listened to it as a kid growing up, but I'd never shown any aptitude for it. And then all of a sudden, in the late 1970s, I just was able to pick it up, and within a matter of weeks, I had several hours of performance material, and things just went from strength to strength. So I was just very lucky to pick it up. I love anything with a good melody, and a lot of the great melodies were written in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Although I loved the Beatles growing up in the 60s, and then the music of the 70s, the Carpenters, listening to Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, anything with a great tune appeals to me. But I always try and present something with a bit of a difference to it. If I'm doing somebody else's music, I try and take a great hit song and do it with a slightly different rhythm or a different orchestration. So that's the challenge for me. Well, my wife was from Connecticut, and she worked in Boston for ages, which is freezing cold for far too long. Lovely place though it is. And we decided we'd like somewhere warmer. And Florida was a bit too warm, so we came halfway, as many folks do, and have just loved the weather and loved the environment and everything about it. Well, when I first came here, I made contact with the local public radio folks, WHQR, and I brought over here a series that I'd done in England called At Your Request, where I sat at the piano live and played requests for people who called in. And that kind of spun off, and I found an opportunity down in Myrtle Beach. They've got a wonderful variety show called the Carolina Opry, where I took that from a studio setting and put it live on stage. And that was great fun. For about 5 years, I became a piano headliner and played to an enormous number of people who were very kind and very forgiving, and they kind of enjoyed the odd Englishness to it. The branch had occurred to me just after I'd been at the Carolina Opry, and decided to take my show there for a couple of seasons, and that was great fun. It didn't turn out to be the long-term success that I thought it might, but you know, things are changing all the time in the entertainment world, so I had to be realistic about that. And then I went out to Las Vegas and won the Liberace Showmanship Championship there. That was great fun to be able to go out there and perform, you know, in one of the premier entertainment environments. As I have my own recording studio, I put all the production touches to my own things, and then I actually upload them to the web, where folks can come on and download, and if you search me on Google or on YouTube, you'll be able to do that. It's quite a process to be doing it all yourself, but it's brilliant if you can really understand it. And I found a wonderful guru here in Wilmington who educated me how to do this stuff, and he actually, one of the first things he said to me was the most valuable lesson I've ever learned. He said, once you learn to put together your own visual presentations, you'll perform differently because you'll see yourself as others see you. I wake up in the morning and get emails from Buenos Aires and Singapore, and people have bought albums. I've never been there, you know, but it's great. It's an incredible outreach and a remarkable opportunity. My wife and baby keep me sane, but they like it as much as I do when I get to go away and have a break, which is where I build up the video and the film opportunities of me doing performances. And I've recently re-entered the cruise market, and that's incredible. It's like a fabulous floating hotel and a showroom at sea. And it's not terribly hard work, but the traveling's a bit something to get used to. But you know, I go out and then I perform my show and I videotape it and I bring it home, and then I can present it to a much wider audience. When I originally started, music was being released on vinyl albums, and that was the holy grail. And indeed, that was my first album. But since then, things have changed enormously. You know, the way music's been distributed and how it's made on digital multitracks now compared to real-life tape. So I've had to keep up with that. I've had a lot of equipment changes and a lot of approach changes in the way music's recorded and broadcast and got out to the public. So it brings me right up to date now with the internet and downloadable music. All of my music is now available for download. So I wake up in the morning, I get an email from Singapore or Hong Kong or Brazil, and you know, people are downloading music that I've never met and never performed for. So it's a remarkable thing. You know, a while ago, people thought that bricks and mortar record shops were the only way to go. Well, most of them are gone now. So the internet is the way to go, and I've had to keep up with that. The first recording studio I went to had great big reels of tape and guys walking around with chalkboards and sound engineers, and now you can do it yourself. And that's what's led me to actually have a studio in my house, so I can sit at any time of day or night without waking anybody up and produce the music that you would formerly have maybe had to go to New York or Chicago or somewhere to record. And that's available to everybody, so nobody could say they aren't given a chance now to produce their own thing and get their own art out there in one way or another. You know, the one thing that hasn't changed through all that time is that in a live performance setting, people want to get to know you and get the vibe directly from you on stage. And I don't think that's ever changed from the days of Frank Sinatra and Al Jolson and Judy Garland right through to now. People love to get a live experience, and that's not changed. You know, people still get a buzz out of somebody doing something dynamic and fantastic on stage, and that's what I try to deliver. I mean, the internet and all the digital distribution and YouTube is fun, but that's for sitting at home with a computer. But when you go out live on stage, that's the biggest buzz of all, where you're really connecting with fellow human beings and giving them something special that they wouldn't see anywhere else. Well, the preparation to go on stage always begins in your head. You hear a piece of music or you have an idea for a show, and basically you chop it up into tiny little pieces. The music, the presentation, the look, the speed, all of those things. And just like show business of old, you put those things together in private rehearsal, and then you polish them. And in fact, one of the greatest opportunities I had to perform regularly and polish my performance was in Myrtle Beach in the Carolina Opry. That show runs 6 nights a week for about 48, 49 weeks of the year. And I had the chance to perform in front of an audience and gauge the feedback from them. So they introduced me to Floyd Kramer. Boy, were they right. Audiences teach you a lot of things. One of the great things about the traveling to perform, particularly at the moment on cruise lines, is that you have time at home to enjoy and then time when it's exciting and you go out and travel. Performing to an audience at sea is not that different to performing in a theatre here, except you actually get to meet and live with the audience for a period of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days, something like that. So they get to know you and you get to hear what their favourite tunes are, and that always gives me a kick. Perform their favourites live on stage. I've done that in the past in radio series and television, but to be able to do it live with an audience that you've got to know a little better, and they've asked you questions, told you things about the family and asked you about yourself, it's a real super connection, and then you could thrill them by performing a piece of music that they maybe haven't heard for quite some time. So that's the great thing, and it's nice to go away, but it's lovely to come back home. Well, the fun thing about performing all over the place is to meet a very widespread audience. But what I'd love to do is perhaps perform more closer to home here in the Wilmington, Raleigh, extended regional area. And although some folks have got to know me through some of my performances, I've yet to do any major performances here. So, I made my own PBS-style documentary film which is full of music. And I'd love that to be screened on PBS, but even more than that, I'd love to play in some of the major auditoria that are here in the region. So you know how you can find me, and I'd love to perform. I think it would go great.